Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. This week, we read Parshat Bechukotai. We read the conclusion of the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is about being sacred community. Not that books of the Torah are organized with introductions that summarize the thesis, 3 supporting points, each backed up by 3 supporting statements of evidence, concluding with a summary of what has just been presented. But this week's reading does conclude the book. And the Parsha begins, Im bechukotai telechu v'et mitzvotai tishmeru v'yasitem otam. If you walk in my ways and keep my commandments and do them, further along the words continue, I will then walk. It's a very intense form of the verb. I will then walk with you. I will be for you. I will be your God, and you will be my people. It also says, it says as well, if you do not spurn my mitzvot, quote, I will place my tabernacle amongst you, and my being will not spurn you. There is a parallel relationship here, where what one does, the other does. What the people do, God does. What happens below, happens above. What happens within, happens without. It's a dynamic, responsive, interactive, covenantal relationship. By bringing mitzvot into the life of the community, we are sacred community. So let me read the opening of this. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give your rains in their season, and the land shall yield her produce, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. And your threshing shall reach into the vintage, and the vintage shall reach into the planting time, and you shall eat your bread until you have enough, and dwell in your land safely. And I will give peace in the land, and you shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid. And I will cause evil beasts to cease out of the land, neither shall the sword go through your land. And you shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall chase 10,000, and your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. And I will have respect unto you, and make you fruitful, and multiply you, and will establish my covenant with you. And you shall eat old store long kept, and you shall bring forth the old from before the new. And I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul shall not abhor you. And I will walk among you, and will be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God, who brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, that you should not be their bondmen. And I have broken the bars of your yoke, and made you go upright. Of course, as is implied by the words dynamic, responsive, interactive, the Torah continues, V'lo tishmeu li, v'lo ta'asu et kol hamitzvot ha'eleh. And if you don't shema me, shema means hear, understand, obey, listen to me, then all the opposite will happen, but all in a parallel relationship. You spurn my mitzvot, then I spurn you. You abandon me, then I abandon you. Maybe even if you do not shema me, shema as in hear and obey, then I will not shema you. Then you will not shema me. Shema as in hear and understand. For shema means all of those things together in all the ways that we understand the English phrase, listen up. We have a hint in the text of how the difference being described is so much about our own internal perception how the change in the nature of our experience is about how we are perceiving what is around us. That somehow when we are incorporating into our life a right and constructive way of being and acting, that we are then incorporating into our lives a right and constructive way of perceiving and seeing. For if you don't live in my ways, then it also says, even the sound of a driven leaf shall frighten you, and you shall flee even though no one is chasing you. That you will perceive everything to be afraid of. But this is not how it's supposed to be, as the Parsha continues. V'afgam zot b'hiotam be'eretz oivehem lo mastim v'lo ga'altim lechalotam. The Parsha continues, and yet, for all of that, when they, as in the people, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them. Neither will I spurn them to destroy them utterly and to break my covenant with them. For I am the Lord their God. But I will, for their sakes, remember the covenant of their ancestors, whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the nations. Lihyot lahem lelohim, ani Adonai, that I might be their God, I Adonai. I'm going to mention some things that people familiar with tradition might pick up on. Recall what we say in the words of the Siddur, the prayer book. Lihyot lachem lelohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Lihyot lachem lelohim. It's from the Kedusha. To be for you a God. The reference seems to be, for I am the one who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Lihyot lachem lelohim. And v'zocher chastei avot umevi goel livnei v'neihem leman shemo bi'ahava, who remembers the kindnesses of our ancestors and brings redemption to their descendants' in love for the sake of your name. We read our Torah book in the context of the Torah relationship between the people of Israel and the God of Israel. And what I'm reflecting on is, as you read this section of the Torah, it often seems so, what do you call it? Quid pro quo, tit for tat, and very harsh and very delineated. You do this, and this will happen. But if you do this, then this will happen. And I repeat here, we read our Torah book in the context of the Torah relationship between the people of Israel and the God of Israel. We call the Torah book the written Torah, and we call that Torah relationship the oral Torah. The tradition of Judaism understands that these two aspects of Torah are one. Rabbinic Judaism talks about Torah shebichtav, Torah that's written, and Torah sheba'al peh. Literally, that's of the mouth. Torah that's of the mouth. That's oral. Written Torah and oral Torah. Neither exists without the other. We have the book and we have the tradition that has come down with the book. And all so often, Torah shebichtav emphasizes ahavat Torah, love of Torah, love of Torah. And Torah sheba'al peh often emphasizes, oral Torah often emphasizes ahavat Yisrael, love of Israel. So we have love of Torah and love of Israel. Well, the problem is often Israel is trampling over Torah. And love of Torah, love of Israel. So there's a tension, but even It's not always true that oral Torah emphasizes one and written Torah emphasizes the other. Ahavat Torah and Ahavat Yisrael exist fully in both the written and oral traditions. But living Torah always exists in the mouth of the living community, Ba'al Peh. Living Torah always depends on the living community. Oral Torah is what is capable of response to the living moment. Written Torah exists as a source of strength for the community. It is a means for us to remember Torah, to recall in some unchanging form what has been, so that we can live through the moment, remembering and knowing who we are and where we come from. But a book, by definition, is a response to the moment in which its words come together. It is not a living entity able to respond to the moment. Written Torah is our spine. It is the backbone to the body of Israel, within whose mouth exists the oral Torah. So it would not be surprising that written Torah emphasizes love of Torah, while oral Torah is emphasizing love of the people of Israel. Note the two arguments made in the Torah story, two different arguments made by Moses as recorded in the written Torah after the episode of the golden calf. You know the story of the golden calf. Moses comes down, people are dancing around the calf. Afterwards, to the people, Moses argues that they had transgressed and they must be more faithful. The people had trampled over Torah. They needed to repent. This was an argument for Ahavat Torah, love of Torah. To God, Moses actively argued that God needed to forgive the people. The people, says Moses, are your people. Just as this week's Parsha, by the way, insists that the people are God's people, existing in covenant with God, Moses argues God must therefore forgive the people. This is an argument for Ahavat Yisrael, love of Israel. In the end, the written Torah embraces both. God gives the Torah through Moses a second time. Moses goes up the mountain again in an act of forgiveness by God, and out of forgiveness, motivated by Ahavat Yisrael, we receive a second chance at receiving the Torah. And every day in our daily prayers, and every year on Yom Kippur, we remind God in our prayers of the value of Ahavat Yisrael, even as we remind ourselves of the value of Ahavat Torah. Our prayers on Yom Kippur are basically saying, God, remember you forgave us. Remember you forgave us. You said so. And all this is Torah. Torah not necessarily living in the book, but Torah rooted in the book as its foundation, but living in Klal Yisrael, in the body of Israel, with the Sefer Torah as its spine. Note also how the Sefer Torah sometimes contrasts with the Siddur. The Siddur, the prayer book. The Sefer Torah is very much the expression of written Torah. The Siddur is very much the expression of oral Torah, literally in Torah in the mouth of the people. The Sefer Torah comes across on its surface really as demanding, an expression of Ahavat Torah. The Siddur comes across on its surface as built upon Ahavat Yisrael, love of Torah. See how the Siddur positions us inside the words of the opening of the Amidah. The Amidah says, Zocher chasdei avot, God remembers the kindnesses of our ancestors and brings a redeemer to their children's children for the sake of God's name. In kindness you sustain the living, healing the sick, freeing the captive, remaining faithful to all life held dormant in the earth. Both are Torah, found in the writing of the book and in the prayers of the people. So I said Leviticus is about sacred community, being in sacred community. How do we go about becoming and being sacred community? Live Torah, read Torah, study Torah, and be Torah. As the book of Leviticus ends in our reading this week, the last verse seems to read, "These are the commandments which the Lord commanded Moses to the children of Israel in Mount Sinai." But our printed version actually translates, "These are the commandments which the Lord commanded Moses for the children of Israel in Mount Sinai." A rendition which perhaps better portrays the relationship between the people and the book. And whenever we finish reading a book of the Torah, we say, "Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek," strength, strength, and be strengthened. Say that, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. So please rise and respond with those words after I chant the very last verse. Ele ha-mitzvot asher tziva Adonai et Moshe el bnei Yisrael behar Sinai. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. And while you are still standing, I want to say, I don't think we have this in the electronic form. We count 50 days from Passover to Shavuot, from the giving of, from gaining our freedom to the receiving of the Torah. Yesterday was the 38th day of the Omer. So we say a blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. On page 675, blessed are you, eternal our God, the sovereign of all worlds, who has made us holy with your mitzvot and commanded us concerning the counting of the Omer. Hayom tisha ushloshim yom. Today is the 39th day. Shehem chamisha shavuot v'arba'a yamim la'omer. Making 5 weeks and 4 days to the Omer. We have 10 more days to the Omer. And then it's Shavuot, when we'll be reaching the mountain and going up the mountain.